Well, I'm going to guess you're watching this video because you're thinking about getting the Crane M2, or you're at least looking at all the options out there. And if you're like me, you've already done some research. I spent probably 3 months watching YouTube videos, reading reviews in groups, looking at what other people were doing, asking questions. I missed one opportunity to get the Crane at a sale price during the Christmas holidays. But I finally pulled the trigger again after doing a lot of my own research, after reading tons of reviews, watching tons of videos. I finally decided to go ahead and get the Crane M2 for my Sony ZV-1. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. The context of this review is using the Crane M2 with the Sony ZV-1 point and shoot camera. Now the Crane M2 is perfect in my mind for the point and shoot type camera, like Sony ZV-1, like the Canon M50, several others in that category, and then the action cameras like the GoPros and also some of your smartphones. So yeah, I'm gonna cover I think 9 things here, and then we'll get into a video immediately following this introduction that will show you the Crane M2 in action, several different scenes. So first of all, it's light and compact and very easy to travel with. That was one of the things that helped me settle in on the Crane M2. It doesn't hurt that it comes from one of the best companies out there, one of the innovators when it comes to developing gimbals. So that's a plus. It does come with a plate that allows you to connect your point and shoot camera, your action camera. It also comes with a mount that you can use for your smartphone. Now I have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the mount, if you will, for smartphones, it will handle the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a case on it. So that's helpful. Also, now after having had the Crane M2 for about 2 weeks, I've come to the conclusion that it's easy to learn. I'm certainly by no means quite an expert yet with regards to all the modes. I won't go into what all the modes are. Plenty of videos that talk about that, but a number of modes that you can put it in. Easy to learn how to use those modes. One of the keys to using any of those and using the gimbal just in general is you need to go through the process of balancing the gimbal, and I'll briefly talk about that more in a minute. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about is so let's talk about balancing now. It's really the next point in my notes. You want to make sure and balance your gimbal with your camera turned on so that the lens is out. You also want to have, if you're going to connect an external microphone of some sort, and the cable that you would connect from the microphone into your audio in of your camera. Again, Sony ZV-1 certainly has one. You'll see in some of the pictures that I'm also posting here on Amazon, showing a Rode Wireless Go. The main thing about the Rode Wireless Go, or what I like about it the most, is it allows the Crane M2 to have the most or the broadest, most flexible range of motion. If you were to put a actual camera, even the smallest of like all the different Rodes, different deities, there's a number of different external microphones. If you put those on there, the range of motion is going to be limited. If it's one of your larger microphones, it would certainly work. You may get to a point where balancing could be an issue, but if you look at the pictures that I've posted, you'll certainly see I was able to balance my Sony ZV-1 on the Crane M2 with the Rode Wireless Go on there and the little cable that it needs. Now, what's important actually to be able to do that, if you do want to be able to have an external mic and you want to possibly have USB power, it's going to be important that you actually have a cage on your camera. Now, I can't speak to the other cameras, but on the Sony ZV-1, I have the Smallrig cage, and again, the pictures will show the how you need to place that as far as connecting it to the plate that comes for your point and shoot cameras and your action cameras, but you'll want to look at that. One of the other things, which I don't have yet, but I'm going to be getting, again, all of this stuff is available on Amazon, any of the accessories that I'm going to mention. But Smallrig also has come out with a quick release plate where you can leave the plate that you need to mount your camera on the actual gimbal, and then you just snap your camera into it. So you would balance it that way, obviously, and then it can just come on and off fairly easily. And then if you're using a Arca Swiss type mount for your other tripods, that type of thing, it's universal, and you would be able to move your camera around. Honestly, I wish I had two Sony ZV-1s or maybe a Sony A, 6100, 6600 that I could leave on the gimbal, but I only have the Sony ZV-1 right now, so it has to be my webcam. I'm using the Sony ZV-1 to record this video right here, so I wanted to have that flexibility. One of the other things, it honestly was hard to come up with any cons with regards to the Crane M2, especially because I spent so much time reviewing, looking at videos, all those things, and had already really made what I think was a very informed decision. But I will say, not necessarily a con, but again, something to keep in mind. If you do want to have your external microphone connected and possibly USB power, you do have to have the cage. I don't believe, I initially didn't think the cage would actually work. Messed with it some more, was able to get it balanced with the cage on there. If you don't have the cage, the camera is going to be too close to the motor and there won't be any room for your cables. But one thing you do need to keep in mind, if you are going to connect a microphone cable or a USB power cable, you're going to need a right angle or a left angle USB or micro USB and 3.5 audio. Those available again on Amazon. So keep all of that in mind. Now, if you don't need or don't want to bother with an external mic, and if roughly an hour and 30 minutes at best is all you're going to need at any one point in time, then you're set. The one good thing also about having the quick connect plate is you'll be able to get to your battery and to your SD card in your Sony ZV-1 camera, if that's the camera you're using. Probably similarly for some of the other cameras, but if you use the plate that comes with the Crane M2, then you'll have to remove that plate each time. It's not the end of the world to remove it. A little bit of an inconvenience, but nonetheless, it is something you can avoid if you get that plate. One other thing, I think this is the last thing. I personally, you can try, but I personally don't recommend that you use the Sony ZV-1 has a flip out screen. I have not found that having the flip out screen out when I'm using it on the gimbal is a really good idea. I think there's the potential for you when you turn it off, or if for whatever reason you don't have it balanced right and it goes into that kind of like warning mode where it goes limp, basically, it could damage your screen, and it'll be difficult to balance. And if you balance it with that screen out, then if for any reason you need to have the screen in and use it, you're likely to have to rebalance it again. So you'd have to try to mark the two different places, all of that. So I've found that it's not worth having that screen flipped out. Now, it's a little bit more of a challenge to be able to see your screen, but I think once you get your zoom in or out or whatever you're going to do, you can just kind of know what's going to be in the field of view of the camera. And that does lead me to, I guess, just one other point. You may want to, test it out for yourself and see if it works for you, then fine. But your range of motion, if you do even decide to do that, your range of motion, similar to with a microphone, your range of motion may be limited some. So keep that in mind. Last thing, the immediately following this, actually as part of the same video, I'm going to jump into, I think, 5 different scenes where we're using the Crane M2, literally driving in a car, someone else driving, and then I'm videoing outside of the car, and you can see the scene with the gimbal, without the gimbal. The very first scene is only with the gimbal, as it turns out. Got a little bit of background music in that video. Hope you enjoy that. And I think that's it. I think that's what I wanted to cover. I highly recommend the Crane M2. I'm glad I waited and did the reviewing that I did, the studying that I did. And, I'm very happy with the results, and I'm actually amazed at the results. One of the thoughts that I had is I wished I had actually had it for Christmas. You're really going to be able to smooth out, especially those kinds of videos where you're following maybe your kids around, or as you see in the videos that I'm doing, is maybe you're driving, walking, not you driving. You shouldn't drive actually in video at the same time, but have someone doing that with you, helping you with that. But the video, these scenes, I think speak for themselves. I think you'll certainly see the benefits of having a gimbal. It's obviously not for every scenario, but I know I'll be using it more and more. And with that quick release plate, it actually makes it even easier. So you do have the opportunity to actually ask questions in the Q&A section here on Amazon. So I'll be on there some, checking this review out to see if people have looked at it, see if people have questions, and I'll answer what I can. And there's a lot of other resources out there, a lot of other videos out there. But again, just remember all these accessories that I've mentioned, they're all available on Amazon. So without further ado, hang on and watch these different scenes with the gimbal being used, with the Crane M2 being used, and with me just hand holding the Sony ZV-1.